Time Crash marks a very special point for the revived series, and indeed the series in general. The first real time together of the classic and new series, and wow does it do spectacularly well. Of course at this stage, Doctor Who had become a staple for children in need, and 2007 was no exception. Here we get, arguably, one of Moffat's cleverest minisodes, and it's one I really do love. Even if it was ambiguous beforehand, Time Crash exists as nothing short of a love letter to a very particular past era of the show, and one that is particularly special to Tennant and his Doctor. To be fair, Time Crash is far from the first demonstration of how much love the revived show has for the original Doctor Who. Anybody watching the previous 3 years of the show will recognise the obvious efforts made to connect this television show to the classic show. These nods began relatively low key and then grew bolder over time, until we reached Time Crash, the real summation of all of this. Time Crash is a point where it becomes impossible to miss the way that Davies is linking the revived series back to the classic science fiction show, and to a certain degree, so is Moffat. There are a lot of reasons for this. Most obviously, it's Davies' last real chance to do this before his tenure ends. Sure, he'd be sticking around for a string of specials at the end of the series, but this is his last full series of Doctor Who. The same is true of David Tennant, who is a massive fan of the classic series, namely the 4th, and of course the 5th Doctor's era. There are lots of other little reasons also. This is the 30th season of the show, counting from the classic series obviously, but it's also the 45th anniversary. While neither are huge accomplishments, they are definitely worth celebrating. While resurrecting Doctor Who became a massive risk for the BBC initially, a long and painful process, the show has become one of the station's great success stories over the years. The 4th season is really just a massive celebration of how successful the show has been in recent times, at that point, culminating with Journey's End claiming top spot in the weekly ratings and repping some fantastic reviews for the show. It only felt right that celebrations of the show's legacy and history should be a part of that. More than that though, audiences have come to accept Doctor Who as what it was, so it made sense to begin introducing classic elements on a larger scale. The premise of this short is that the 5th and 10th Doctor discover that their TARDISes, at different points in their time stream, have collided because the 10th Doctor left his shields down. This then creates a paradox, about the size of Belgium, that will create a black hole strong enough to swallow the entire universe, unless the two can stop it. I mean, Time Crash might as well have roped in the entire production team to appear over the Doctor's shoulder, as he very sweetly told the 5th Doctor, "Because you know what, Doctor? You are my Doctor." It's an incredibly sweet moment, and one that is surprisingly candid, and you really get the sense that Tennant is just embodying the Doctor right there. The show leans quite heavily on the fourth wall, but Time Crash sees Tennant and Moffat take a sledgehammer to it. Also, the audience at home gets the sense they really do love Davison's work. Another thing I really do love is that Graham Harper returns to direct the 5th Doctor, of course having directed his final story, The Caves of Androzani, back in the classic series. David Tennant considers Peter Davison, along with Tom Baker, as his definitive version of the Doctor, although given Tennant is now Davison's son-in-law, he's hardly an objective source anymore. Still, Stephen Moffat is a massive fan of Davison's work on the show, and that really comes across on screen. Peter Davison might always exist in the shadow of Tom Baker in popular consciousness, but that doesn't blind Moffat and Davies to the superb work that Davison really did. Indeed, an extended portion of Time Crash consists of the 10th Doctor explaining just how much of Tennant's performance, and even his outfit, is drawn from Davison, and it really plays well. Davison manages to handle Moffat's dialogue with ease, also. Moffat's dialogue is markedly different from the dialogue in the scripts produced while Davison was working on the show. It's a lot looser and more casual than the dialogue from the classic series tended to be. There's nothing wrong with that. Television has just changed over the decades since The Caves of Androzani aired in 1984, and it's demonstrated by other changes like the shift in the format of the programme, and even the performance styles of actors like Eccleston, Tennant himself, and Matt Smith to follow. It's also very hard to imagine the 5th Doctor delivering lines like "timey-wimey." That's a very modern type of exposition, and unlike the technobabble usually given to Davison's Doctor. That's a paradox that could blow a hole in the space-time continuum the size of, well actually, the exact size of Belgium. That's a bit undramatic, isn't it? Belgium. It's a line that is easier to read in the voice of the 10th Doctor than the 5th. However, Davison makes it work. More than that, though, he does it while still sounding like the 5th Doctor. This isn't a reinvention or reworking of the character. Davison says those lines, and suddenly they fit the character perfectly. He transitions between the two eras perfectly. Whether offering a brutal put-down to the 10th Doctor, or making none too subtle jabs at the Master's sexuality, Davison manages to keep the character consistent. The Fifth Doctor would never get to make remarks about the Master's rubbish beard on screen, but he totally could have, and that's explored here. In that way, Davison himself forms a bridge between the classic series and more modern Doctor Who. His work here suggests that the style and pace and tone of the new series are actually perfectly in keeping with the classic series, even if there are obvious changes over the time. More than that, though, he's given some well-deserved vindication and recognition. Davison's tenure is 100% underrated, and it's nice to see the actor was given a good chance to remind us just how good he really was. Overall, I'd say that Timecraft is an incredibly sweet package to an underappreciated performer, but it's also a bold demonstration of just how deeply Davies and Moffat, and everyone else working on the show, cared for the classic series, as if we didn't know already. Thank you very much for watching this mini review. I shall be back for my review of Voyage of the Damned very soon.